because I think we got our spankings because we did not stand on our principles of what the party was founded on. And when you look back on it, in 2000, I worked hard for a party to elect people. I served in a minority party for 6 years in the Missouri House and realized that the only way you can drive the agenda is to be in the majority. So we went out and worked hard, and I was part of leadership of the Republicans that the first time we had taken over the Missouri House in 48 years. And we still have that House and Senate today. What I'm proud of is last year, in a bad election year, it was a bad election year for Republicans, we were able to gain 3 seats in the Missouri Senate. So we bucked the trend all across the country because I think we led with conservative leadership. We've actually lived on the money that was coming into government and allowed you to keep more, and we actually cut taxes. And I think that's what people want from their government. So in a bad election year, when Republicans were losing all over, we gained 3 seats. And I think because of what we stood on Republican principles. But if you look back on history, the party that I worked hard for in 2001, 2002, we all heard that if we ever got the presidency, the House and the Senate, we could put forth a conservative agenda for America and be able to have smaller government, less regulation. And what happened during that time? 2001, 2002 is when the Republicans took over, and the deficit was $30 billion. I can live with that because there were several things that happened, and one of the most tragic was 9/11. So you had a downturn in the economy, revenues dropped, you still had the spending, so you can live through that because you're going to have a transition period to finally budgeting in the war effort and the downturn in the economy. But what we didn't anticipate is Republican numbers grew from 229 to 205. The Senate was 51-48. 2003, 2004, our deficit grew $792 billion. This is what we didn't expect from our party that was elected into office. 2000, 2005, and 2006, the Republican high mark was 232 in the House, 232 to 202 in the House, 55 to 44 in the Senate. The deficit grew $566 billion. And I think we all know what happened in 2007, 2008. We basically got kicked back out of office because I don't think we believed that we didn't follow through with our principles. And now this last week I saw a news report that the deficit for this year was going to be $1.4 trillion anticipated. So you can see that if Republicans actually believe in the principles and follow through, and if you look at a Republican platform, our number one item on our platform is a balanced budget. So is it the fault of the party, or is it the fault of the people that we elected to represent us? When the budget, our platform says that we should have a balanced budget. It's the people we elected because they didn't follow through with the Republican principles. Number 2, plank in the Republican platform. Does anyone know what that is? It's no earmarks. We're in a situation now where you have 535 members of Congress with an open credit card. Why is that a bad thing? It's because if you look at the unfunded liabilities of this country right now, these are the promises that have already been made through Medicare, Social Security, and all the entitlement programs. The unfunded liabilities of our nation right now exceed $55 trillion. If you start breaking that down, that's $200,000 of debt for every family in America for promises that have already been made. Not new promises or future programs, but those are the debt that has already been run up on our children and our grandchildren. If you want to break it down more, $50,000 for every family of 4 a child owes. I've been to a lot of tea parties, and there was a little girl on the front row with a sign that says, "I'm $50,000 in debt and haven't even started kindergarten yet." But that's what we're passing on to our kids. You look at the statistics now, we're borrowing $20 billion a week just to keep the lights on in Washington. That's on top of the revenue that's coming in. That's $100 billion has to be borrowed every 5 weeks just for our government to continue to function. And we're talking about adding more, a growing debt onto our children and our grandchildren. And we have 535 members of Congress, some that have swore off earmarks, but many that think that we need to continue to spend. And number one thing is in our platform is no earmarks, but yet the people we elect continue the earmark process. Now, is that the fault of the party, or is it the fault of the people we've elected? You know, another issue that I think is a big difference between what our party believes and some others is the TARP bailout. We as Republicans believe in free market, where as a free market society where you go out and work hard and don't get special favors, but you work hard and you compete. Well, what the TARP thing is, it set up the ability of government to pick winners or losers in a free market system. If you don't think that's correct, why did Lehman Brothers go out of business? We didn't bail them out, but we come in to bail out Goldman Sachs. But one of Goldman Sachs' biggest competition. It began the process of who had the lobbyists, who had the ability to get money, and that was where it began to turn too big to fail. And I walked into my farm bureau, my farm credit place the other day and asked them how big my farm had to be before it was too big to fail. But that is the process of government, of picking winners or losers in a free market system. That is not a free market system when government picks and chooses winners and losers. So anybody that was in our party that voted for a TARP doesn't believe in the basics of our party, of a free market system where the power is the individual to go out and work on his own, not for the government to bestow special favors on other people. Another issue that I disagree with the people that are running is a simple one, the Cash for Clunkers program. Now, I've told this that my wife wanted me to participate in Cash for Clunkers because I have an old car sitting on my carport that I've had for 31 years. And she said, I want you to go get some. So I didn't want to get rid of that car. And I said, what do you want? She says, I want something that goes 0 to 100 really fast. And I didn't know what to get her, so I drove town, I drove around for a little bit, and I finally went and bought her a bathroom escape. So it'll go 0 to 100 really quick. But what the Cash for Clunkers did was it set up the government picking winners and losers in a free market system. And if you don't think government learned anything from the housing market, the housing market problems were that we encouraged people to buy a house they couldn't afford. Well, we did the very same thing with Cash for Clunkers. We encouraged people to buy cars that they couldn't afford, because that really hit me hard because on the day that they approved $2 billion more to go to Cash for Clunkers, my daughter's tuition come in for college, my feed bill come in, and my house payment. And my neighbor went and got a new car. And what the problem was is my money went to help buy him a new car, the money that I had worked for. And the situation is my neighbor had an old clunker, did not make car payments, did not have full coverage insurance, now has a vehicle that he makes payments on and full coverage insurance, and I guarantee it's going to go back in a couple months because he has an ability to pay for it. But yet the government took my money to help someone else. You know, and that is not the role of government. That's not a free market system. But that's some of the reasons that I've been running, and you know, it's been great all across the state. I think what you're seeing out there now is what has been termed a perfect storm, and that silent majority of people beginning the process of waking up to take their country back. Because what we see is continuing the direction that we're going, we're not going to be able to survive as a nation. Because if our nation is not strong financially, we cannot be strong as a nation as a whole. And what we've got to do is get back to the basics that created this country and get out and work to support candidates that do support those goals that we believe in. So thank you very much for having me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all have.
At this point, we're going to have